The world in union. I don't even know how to. Whatever.
That was perfect. Exactly.
We're gonna get sued, Aaron. God damn it.
Well, yeah, copyright violation right there. How's everyone's weekend going?
I went to the Patriots today. That was good. Got to see a good old-fashioned beatdown of our divisional rivals, the Jets.
I heard if you're a degenerate like me, I mean, I'm not. It's illegal to gamble in this state. So I only wish I could gamble. Granted, I'm also
the spread was ruined. Like, dude, it was like New England minus 22.5 or something like that. And our return man fumbled, muffed a punt, gave up a touchdown. And then our backup quarterback, for some reason, came in early in the fourth quarter, and that really pissed off Brady, and he threw a pick six. Yeah, so 14 points scored by the Jets ruined the spread for so many people. There's a lot of sad people across this country right now.
Well, both my teams suck, so that ain't a new story.
So this is hilarious. So Kyler Murray and Kyle Allen were on the same Texas A&M team. They're both like freshmen in the same year, I think, and they both were like one of the 5 quarterbacks that played that year. Kyle Allen ended up going to Houston, and guess what? Former Aggie versus former Aggie, the number 1 overall pick lost. So that is the life of a Cardinals fan.
Yeah, well, the number 6 overall pick, I think he was, or 5, Daniel Jones, season in New York began today. Fourth quarter comeback, ran in the winning touchdown, thanks to a missed kick by the Buccaneers there at the end. But it's good times in New York, not to mention the World Cup has started. So pretty great weekend over here.
So
hey guys, all this football talk, I'm just saying there is a podcast that you're very much welcome to make a guest appearance on in the Earful of Beer family.
We'll move on to that. But this does have to, I'm going to mention something that does have to do with rugby and the New England kid. So is Tom Brady more embarrassed for not like plugging the Eagles first, or for being 1,000,000% behind Antonio Brown?
Dude, it's hard to even comment on the Lord and Savior of New England, Mr. GOAT Tom Brady. However, from what I understand, I saw something on Twitter about the Michigan football team having worked with the Springboks while he was in college.
No, not while he was in college. So he is a Michigan alum. Jim Harbaugh took Michigan their last spring break for their like knowledge gathering. They do these like field trips, and they decided to go to South Africa and learn to play rugby with the Springboks.
Great trip.
Yeah, it was a World Rugby. It's on Michigan football's YouTube channel, and World Rugby did like a 10-minute doc on World Rugby films. Like, it was cool. Don't get me wrong.
I'm sure Nate Ebner sent him a direct message very quickly to clear everything up. I don't think Tom Brady is anti-Eagle whatsoever. I think he's very pro-America. And, after all, he is a Patriot. But I can't defend the gaffe on this one from Tom Terrific there.
Yeah, and in case you didn't see what we're talking about here, before the opening kickoff of the World Cup, Tom Brady on Instagram put out a video saying "Go Bach" to the Springboks, and nothing about Team USA. So that's the incident we're describing here. I was dying to know. I guess that's the connection is Michigan. What the connection to the Springboks and Tom Brady was. I was hoping it was a case of Matt Damon, Springbok, Invictus confusion, but I guess not.
That would have made it a lot funnier if Matt Damon had made an appearance in the video, like in character.
Yeah.
So to all, like, because I'm like the sports law specialist here. So not to do with rugby. I think I need to change these because there's like glare. Give me a minute. But there we go.
For those listening to the audio version of the podcast, Aaron just had to awkwardly go close the shades in the apartment.
Yeah. So
sports law.
So this whole like Antonio Brown thing is crazy, right? And I didn't do a long tweet thread about this. but I did do like a 2-tweet thing. So the NFLPA is required to defend him in a grievance because of the bylaws in the Constitution of the NFL Players Association. He is currently a member of the NFLPA. I think you are a member of the NFLPA as long as you pay your dues until 2 or 3 years after you're no longer playing. So unlike now, since it's been 3 seasons, Kaepernick is no longer eligible to be a member of the NFLPA for all those that want to know. But Antonio, so I doubt DeMaurice Smith wants to actually associate himself as the executive director of the NFLPA with Antonio right now, because the reason why he was cut, this gets nuts.
The text messages, baby.
The first thing that comes out is this lawsuit. I think the woman's, I'm sorry about, I'm going to get this wrong. I think her last name was Taylor. So Miss Taylor, she files her lawsuit in Florida, and we end up finding out later on this week that she had been negotiating, or her attorneys had been negotiating with his attorneys for a settlement, and he just, as you know,
$2 million. More popular reports. There were other numbers floated.
$2 million, so not a lot of money for him, because he's made a lot of money and had a $50 million contract with the Raiders and all that stuff. So that's not the big thing.
He saw very little of that money with the Raiders, though. Yeah. Let's be clear.
Well, I mean, he just
get it back now.
Look at his tweets. But the point here is, like, the Patriots didn't cut him for that one. So there was a report last Sunday from Sports Illustrated. There was a woman that did some work for him in his house. He got like so enraptured with this person's artwork, he hired her to do a mural in his house in Pittsburgh. And he ended up paying her for like 2 days, not paying her for that long, and doing some crazy stuff.
Allegedly doing some crazy stuff.
Allegedly doing some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets, so she ends up, the NFL security ends up getting a hold of her. Patriots end up getting a hold of her. Like, she wanted to remain anonymous. Like, she just commented on the story. The reason why she ends up like participating with the investigation is Antonio Brown, for some reason, thinks it's okay. And I'm saying this is wrong. And I'm saying, if your boy is telling you that you need to threaten someone, you need to get new friends, because this person didn't sue you like the other one, like the other sexual assault allegations. She just, someone came forward. So she came forward with her story, remained anonymous. She is now no longer anonymous to the Patriots and no longer anonymous to the NFL, because you sent a picture of her child and basically saying, hey, you better stop. Like, this dude threatened someone. Like,
he's gone Kanye crazy. Like, he has some sort of sense of entitlement and like that he's untouchable. But this isn't the case. He's been fed this lie in Pittsburgh for so long that he's like this superstar who is like, to be coddled and to be, cushioned around in every little corner, that eventually when he's out in the real world under a coach like John Gruden and under a coach like Bill Belichick, he can't handle the pressure, because Antonio only cares about Antonio.
Yeah. So that was, I'm just kind of busting Poach's balls because he's a hardcore New England fan. But that's sort of been like
we cut the dead meat, bro.
A microcosm of
he's going to the Free Jacks next.
New England being connected to rugby and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, it's a bad look, man. And instead of just going away, he's wanting to play. And there is no collusion. There will be no collusion here with teams not wanting to sign Antonio, because he is now damaged goods. And to all,
he tweeted today that he's done with the NFL. That's his latest thing. He's never going back. Owners can do whatever they want. I'm getting my $40 million. Presumably he means the $30 million Oakland guarantee and the $9 million Patriots signing bonus.
That's not happening. But to just, to close that one up, that's the insane stuff that's going on in the NFL right now. But to all my peeps, to all of our listeners that are in the MLR that are players, don't be Antonio. Just don't be Antonio. It's not hard. Most of you are good guys, and actually, all of you are good guys. I don't know any bad ones personally, but so moving on to the rugby. When it comes to MLR, we'll get to World Cup stuff sort of at the end. I'm not really at the end. It'll be around like a third of the way, but. MLR news. So Austin rebrands as the Austin Herd, and they've changed their colors. Actually, they got rid of the burnt, sort of Pantone orange, whatever the heck that was, and they've solidified their primary colors as this sort of, maybe it's this color, a little lighter, some blue and silver and black, which is supposed to represent all of the colors of the Austin Huns and the Austin Blacks, and be a herd mentality, be like the family.
Yeah, herd. I don't know. I mean, I like they're doing something. The herd is.
It's not. The herd is not phonetically pleasing.
No, it's not.
Can we just say this?
It's not a threatening sounding thing either. Like I think of a herd, I think of like a slow moving set of cows. Yeah. I'm not, you're not like terrified.
It's easy to shoot. Especially when you're riding on a horse with a musket.
Let's just say that it's better than some of the other current MLR names that are out there.
Yeah. I like that they're keeping with the no S at the end, though. I'm glad there's a strong MLR tradition of teams that don't end in the traditional S.
Yeah, that is very true. I had some other ideas that kind of worked with Texas and culture and Austin and stuff.
Rustlers.
Yeah, that would work, that's what they settled on. Honestly, part of when you come up with brands, that's the Stampede is one of the ones I really wanted to go with. But when you come up with brands, it's very difficult. Like, it is tough. And I think this will work with them. They're really starting to – they've made some changes off the field, and they're really starting to work with both clubs. We'll see if that we'll see if the changes lead to ticket sales. So, then going on to other signings, both with Old Glory. Andrew Douglas was their sort of guest coach, I guess is the best way to explain it, for their exhibition season, has been officially appointed head coach of Old Glory. And John Manson, he's got a sweet resume coming over from the Glasgow as the operations manager for Old Glory. They are, man, off the field, they're getting some sweet pieces added to this puzzle. Like I think they will be a first class operation off the field.
Yeah, I like, I guess it's kind of obvious at this point, but I know the coach. I think the operations guy too, 2-year contracts. So that means that's putting us into year 3 and 4 of MLR. I like that these contracts are now not just 1-year things, even for a new team. You're seeing a little bit more of a belief in the long term. So I like that.
Yeah, and then those are the administrative hires that are really big. I think the only ones when it comes to coaches that are left, Austin has a coach. Just announce it. Just let's get it announced so everyone knows. And then we'll be on the way. The two big ones.
Hey man, I think there's been plenty of precedent right now set in MLR that just because a name about a certain coaching hire is floating through the grapevine and seems like a sure thing doesn't mean like it's always.
I will say the name I have it. I don't have a name. I just every time I ask someone over there, this is why I'm kind of annoyed, is like, we have a coach. This is done. We're good. It's gonna be fine. I'm just like, well, I guess I'll stop bitching. Pardon my French there, ladies and gents. Is they are starting to announce signings.
French, Austin.
Yeah, they announced 3 players last week, so that's pretty big, and we'll get into that. Starting from the top, when it comes to player transactions, we've got re-signings, 2 with San Diego this week and 1 with Seattle. Savanaka Toto Vosau, the young Fijian flyer, on the wing, and Jasa Veren Alou at lock and loose forward, returning to San Diego, and then Matt Turner for Seattle. So what do you guys think about this week's re-signings?
San Diego's strong. I don't think I'm going to mess up his name. Toto Vosau is likely to be a starter, but Vermula will probably play. Solid addition. They're just making so many signings that it's hard to really ring the bell at this point. Their team is going to be good. So add another one to the list. Matt Turner's a stud. Glad to see he's back in Seattle.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Craig right there, man. It's really good to see Matt Turner back in Seattle. It seems like they're trying to keep that championship core, mostly together. However, that's kind of one thing that dragged the Seattle Seahawks down into the hole, was trying to keep that championship core together rather than letting the roster kind of change over organically. So maybe this one will be different. Maybe you guys might give up a championship to an East Coast team.
Well, I'm just going to make the token mention of salary cap whenever San Diego signs someone else. So,
yeah. Well, he's like,
salary cap is optional.
Savanaka Toto Vosau is like 21, so I think he's not going to be too expensive. Jocelyn Veramalua, Olympic medalist, but at the end of the day, bringing guys over from Fiji,
San Diego stock.
I think Matt Turner is, has multiple roles within that organization as well, too, at this point.
So those are your important to note. Save was a starter at the beginning of the year, got injured, still very young. When he started playing off the bench, you saw a lot of growth in the back half of the season. Veramalou was actually playing wing at the beginning of the year, and then, he's actually naturally a lock or loose forward, but because of that sevens experience, and he had played a lot of wing, they put him out there, and then they had injuries in the engine room, and then they unleash a monster, putting him up there. So although I think they're going to have the deepest lock pool so far. We'll see what other signings look. If someone gets Savetta back, they're gonna upgrade their lock pool as well.
Yeah. We see a trade. San Diego has every good lock. Not every. They're all good locks. They have way too many locks than they could use. This is year 3. I want to see some trade activity.
Yeah. So signings, sort of within the league. We've got DTS. He was a draftee. I know we had a question on Facebook, what all of the drafted players were. I think I don't know the way this is going. I know that DTS was drafted from Glendale. Glendale had a total of 4 players drafted by expansion teams. So the draft is kind of weird. I think I'll get some more clarification. But the 3 expansion teams had the first pick of the litter when it came to bringing in proven MLR players over to their teams. And then there was sort of like an associate player matching process that is intended to redistribute some players geographically and increase the competitive equity of a team, say like Austin, who finished 0-16 undefeated.
That was the elite. The Austin Herd are 0-0.
But
number who this.
So that was DTS, and then Kyle Breitenbach moves from Austin, moves down to the SaberCats. He's a loose forward. Austin signs Roland Suniula, so he, after only a year with Seattle, comes back to Austin. Wesley White, All-American, number 8, and legendary South African coach Jake White's son. And then Frank Kalai, All Black, number 1128. So what do you guys think there?
Well, I think the Dylan Takato Simpson signing for Old Glory is definitely the most exciting and probably going to be the most bountiful in terms of returns, like actually seen on field. Dylan last season was becoming one of the most dynamic players on the field, and I believe he's still pretty young. How old is he?
I'll tell you. I think he was like 26.
I would say 29. I don't know. He's young now.
Yeah, no. So he's definitely not a young buck who's still developing. He's kind of at that ripe age. There's probably not a ton of tread on his tires, considering that he's been playing American rugby for. Has he played overseas at all? Actually, I really should know this.
He's been around. He played with Glasgow. He played with CSM Bucharesti. He played Viadana. Yeah. So.
He'll turn 30 next year.
Not a ton of tread on his tires, but he has the experience. And I think Old Glory DC's in terms of their signings, in terms of what we know about their roster, it definitely seems to lack a little bit less firepower than a few of the other expansions squads at this point. So I think, great dynamic addition on the back end for that defense and their offense as well.
So what you're saying, Josh, is that for a forward, he'd be kind of old, but for a back at 30, he's very young.
Well, I was going to say, how old is – I mean, Andrew Suniola played last year a couple of games. Adam Alif is still playing.
It's like he's not the oldest guy. I mean,
no. Honestly, I feel like he's just coming into his prime.
Hubert Bidens was 37 this year. So
who's the lock from Japan that's like close to 38 or something? Is he a lock or is he a loose?
No, the player from Japan was that prop that played with Austin. Yeah, I think he was like 39. He would be the oldest one. He was pretty old. And moving forward with those, I think Kalai is an interesting one. He's played a lot of European rugby, but anytime you get an All Black, and from what I understand, he's not the only All Black that has been signed into this league. There will be some other guys coming in.
That's good. New York, a lot of people. I mean, I don't know if they're exactly what's working with draft-wise or rights, but they're making signings, so their organizational health seems to be intact.
Yeah, I think now we just if people are questioning organizational health, now you're wanting to see information out of Utah. They're the only team that really hasn't pushed anything out. They did send an email out to season ticket holders.
This is nothing new though. Like I feel like this is good dating back the last two off seasons that Utah has been behind the curve in terms of putting out information.
They have been relatively quiet.
For sure. The interesting thing was that San Diego completely went against the grain of what they had previously done. The first 2 years, you just sort of knew that there was a team, and then they announced their entire roster at the same time, sort of how the Free Jacks did it this time, except that, the Free Jacks did it at the end, like in the middle of August, not in February.
Yeah. I mean, it's good that teams are making.
Free Jacks also had objectively cooler graphics. One with the horse head.
I don't think they even had graphics. They just appeared on Reddit one day, right? There wasn't even an announcement. It was like the website was updated. You refreshed it. There was the lineup.
Yeah.
The Free Jacks, they posted it on their Facebook page. There was multiple posts.
I mean, San Diego.
It was on Twitter too.
It was San Diego. It just went up on their website. No announcement. And whereas this year it's been pretty good. They've consistently funneled out information so that I'm not beating up executives and head coaches' phones like I was last year, and to the chagrin of many. But and then the last signing this year, and then we'll get into sort of different transactions so far, was New York signing Robbie Uremescu, All-American, 2-time All-American, 3-time All-Rugby East hooker and captain, I believe, out of Penn State. And then sort of in the release, I wouldn't say it was hidden, but it said that him as a signee would compete against the Butcher, Dylan Fawcett, and Mike Brown. So I guess you could say that Dylan Fawcett and Mike Brown have both been re-signed.
New York's building around the hooker. Let's put it that way.
So to be fair, Dylan played pretty much every minute last year. Is it really a competition?
No,
I mean,
Dylan might go to 8. I mean, that's the only thing is I think Dylan could use some rest from the front row. It's tough to play 80 minutes in the front row every week, so you need to find a place on the field. When he left the hooker position, I think there were a lot more struggles. So,
I mean, I think he didn't play the hooker every minute, but I believe he was on the field every minute.
Yeah, he started at 8.
There was a game he didn't play. There was a game he got rested. But I don't think it was a game that was very good.
I think Nate Brinkley may have actually led that team in minutes by season's end.
Yeah, he did. He did. And they just need another option. Mike Brown did play some, but he didn't play a lot. They need an option that can take 20 minutes.
And you got an All-American. I mean, who knows how long Dylan Fawcett will stay in USA, MLR or whatever. So anytime you're signing a young All-American from the area, I think it's a good pickup.
Best part is, I had a conversation with James English, and I was like, who doesn't need to play fall club rugby if he doesn't make the World Cup? Because they were talking about development plans for different players and who they wanted to play club rugby, and I was like, Dylan should not be playing club rugby.
I think they're all playing now. Is what last I
No, not most. There are more than a few guys that are not all playing. But there are some guys that definitely were told. I guess the intent was for them to play club rugby, and so you've got O'Keefe, you've got Connor Wallace-Sims out there. So you've got some guys. I don't know who Nyack has because Nyack Club Rugby. Hey, Mike Petrie, get your social guy to build some social stuff so I know who's on the team because they're social.
Nyack posted a roster on Facebook the other day for their match against Mystic. Hold on. Yeah, people, you're just gonna watch us all be quiet.
All right, so then I guess we'll look at that. But two sort of retirements. I'm pretty sure one's basically a retirement unless a team moves into Vancouver. Is Cam Poulsen? He's a lock and loose forward for Seattle. He's also a firefighter. I don't think we talked about him last week, but if we did, I'm repeating it. But Aladdin Shermer also announced this week that he would not be returning to the Seattle Seawolves. He is playing with. All
right. So now I have the Nyack D1 roster versus Mystic last weekend.
Who is on the who?
So all right. So
players that are on that thing.
So at loose, Murphy, Hooker, Brown, Tight, Hamilton. Locke Williamson, Locke McConey, flanker Wynn, flanker Murray, 8-man Irmeshu. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that.
Yeah,
that's the one thoughts about.
Yeah, 9 Jimenez, fly half Matina, center Ebanks, wing. I'm sorry, the graphic is hard to read because they have a white background with white. McCarthy, Dalton, Smurden are the last. So not a whole lot of names jumping out in terms of MLR recognition on that game, on that roster. But considering the final score against Mystic, obviously a pretty talented team.
We do have a question from James Sadler asking where Aladdin Shermer is going. He does work for Kibble and Prentice in Seattle. So it's likely that unless something nice happens, he's probably just, hanging him up because, currently right now, guys have to do the cost benefit analysis of, playing hardcore club rugby. And he was at a point where he was, going into the Eagles, and if he thinks that his chances of earning further caps are limited based on our other loose forward talent and how his own body feels, then maybe he just wants to play for the Saracens and continue to do other stuff. yeah, he's young, but there are many guys that make this decision. If you look at the All-Americans, if you go back to when before MLR started, even go without pro, take pro out. So back to 2014, if you go from the All-Americans going from 2010 to 2014, how many of those guys like continue playing club rugby? It's not very many. And the guys that continue playing club rugby were, continuously trying to make the Eagles. So yeah, he was former All-American captain. His career still promising. When he got on the pitch, he was the difference maker. But, it's those of us that work in rugby know that we're not getting paid a lot. And that goes from staff to players.
Yep. And honestly, it takes a really big commitment to, stay in this industry. And especially when you're a player and the physical toll is just as much as the mental. It's hard to quantify that from an outside perspective. You kind of have to be in the person's shoes to truly understand it.
So the next one is really cool. The Saracens did not announce this, but I did confirm it with San Diego. Capelli Pifoletti has been signed to Saracens FC. It is not RC, but Saracens Football Club, which is the London Saracens greats. The double champions last year, Premiership and Champions Cup winners. So I guess he's going to be pushing Jamie George when Jamie George returns from the World Cup.
I was going to say, is it just World Cup cover or is it for the whole
No,
year?
it is. He is signed for the season. So as many people know, he was the England U18 captain when he was in age grade. He was a Saracens Academy kid. So was his brother, Faka Osi, who has been re-signed by San Diego. So good for him, man. Like, you're going to have two capped Eagles in the front row at Saracens this season. Like, how good is that? I mean, after the World Cup, guys are going to need some time off, but supposedly the ARC has moved, and we won't be playing the ARC until after the July test window next year. So we're really aligned with the Southern Hemisphere schedule, and it's really, we sort of always have been, because the way the calendar works that was agreed to a couple of years ago, I think it was agreed to in 2015. European teams tour North America and the Southern Hemisphere in the summer. So everyone, so North America and the Southern Hemisphere tours Europe in the November window. And then you have both I guess you would call it an autumn and a winter international window that is separate. Previously, you would call it just the Rugby Championship window for everyone that's in the Southern Hemisphere, and then the window that we had been playing in for the ARC was also the same as the Six Nations and the REC. So, but yeah, wouldn't it be great for a couple of games to have TD Lamosatelli and Capelli Pifoletti starting for the Saracens?
The young front row depth for Team USA is something I'm looking forward to enjoying over the next 8 years. I mean, we have some young hosses in the front row that, like people at different positions. We just talked about age for DTS, but I feel like a prop especially needs some seasoning. You're not reaching your prop peak till you're like 32, 33. We got a lot of years out of these guys left. So they're good now. They're going to be monsters by then.
Let me ask you this. So it's actually been I asked this question a few months ago during our last season, but Craig, you weren't a part of the show then. How long until the Eagles can legitimately compete for a World Cup?
Oh God, compete for a World Cup. I say that by
12 years
next World Cup, we should be competing for a quarterfinal spot.
Yeah. Stranger things have happened, but if we somehow take third in our pool this time, I think by next World Cup we're gonna auto qualify, as long as MLR is still here. And those of us that are working in rugby still have a league to cover and work for,
I mean, so when it comes to, placing possibly third out of, out of 4 in our total pool, Tonga is obviously the
third
team third out of 5. Tonga, I feel like, is the team that you have to kind of target to beat, maybe Argentina. But after that game versus England, how are you guys actually feeling about the possibility of beating Tonga? Because at the same time, they hung in there with England. Like the 35-3 final score, I feel like didn't actually tell the whole story, because I feel like between, like the first whistle and the final whistle, Tonga really gave them hell on defense.
I think Tonga played some pretty decent defense. At times, England, really struggled to run their attack, but at others, they were just so clinical and just ran through the Tonga defense like shit through a goose.
So are you saying there's no chance we beat England?
I'm saying that we have a chance at thumping Tonga if things go the way they go. No, who thinks we're going to beat England? But I do think that we could go out there and compete and be respectable, much better than Tonga. I think we're better coached, and I think we're better conditioned. If you looked at the way that game went, and especially if you also look at Fiji, both of those teams, their fitness just fell apart after about 30 minutes. On defense, they kind of stuck with it, but Tonga's shape and what their attack they were going to do was just shut down. Like they did nothing.
There was no depth on their line even when they were on offense towards the second half. And again, like you said, that's kind of like that fitness starting to kick in, where people aren't so much looking for the ball. They're just trying to be a part of the game and hang back, I guess you could say, as much as they can, while still being kind of active.
The defense for England was really good. And this is where it's funny. When Eddie Jones is not angry after a game, that's just different.
Yeah.
It's lulling them into a false sense of security. It's gold. I
mean, it's all been built to this now, right? Eddie Jones. This is the Eddie Jones hour. Tonga. First of all, Tonga's tight head prop is the biggest person I've ever seen. So they have that going for them.
Well, he is the heaviest person. He is literally the only person above 300 pounds in this Rugby World Cup.
I mean, he looks to the other professional rugby players the way like a normal sized tight head looks to me. Like he looks like he's an obsidian. If you guys are Red Rising fans out there, he's an obsidian.
What did that article from America's Rugby News say? Oh, I think it was he's the only one above 300 pounds, and he weighs 330.
Yeah.
Oh God.
I think they said the next closest. They said the next closest person was 285.
Oh.
So to your point,
how many Tonys got there, lad?
I am a little nervous about Tonga. The score wasn't close in the end, but I agree they were very physical and very up for it, and they gave England. England was not scoring easily for the first 20 minutes. I mean, they made England work for it.
That first almost try by England was great desperation defense by Tonga. Who was that who ripped it away from the English ball carrier? Just the last minute over the try line was what you want to see in the Rugby World Cup, and that just excited me.
Yeah. Now we do get England on short rest for our opener, so we'll be fresh. They'll have just come through,
and that'll make all the difference.
They also have short rest for their next opponent, which makes it like a sweet scenario of like for a chance of an upset. Now, do I think that's going to happen?
Yeah.
I think
it's a good chance for a cover of the spread. Let's put it that way. I think, I don't know what the spread will be, probably 35, something to that effect. And I think there's a chance of us keeping it, within 20, which I think would be a win. I mean, that's a good performance for, Team USA historically against a powerhouse like England, who I think is the most likely team, maybe, albeit.
Don't you say it? Don't you?
I think England has.
I don't know. I understand people hate England, but
first of all,
when it comes to this stuff, I hate all tier one.
I don't hate England.
I hate all tier ones equally.
We've seen all of their samurai history. They're returning to raid the village. So I think that puts them in prime position to win the World Cup.
So if you haven't seen this sweet ad, like this ad is expensive, really well cut. It's like 45 seconds, and they like, I think someone was like, "Hey, this looks like the KKK." It's like, listen to another show, and I was like,
dressing as samurai and then cutting through a cornfield to burn a village of innocent civilians.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was really well done. Now, was it the best, like culturally? Well, everyone knows my feelings about England and using "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot" as their fight song.
Kind of messed up, actually.
So, I mean, I thought it was sweet. Now, was it appropriate? No.
I mean, I don't even find it inappropriate. I just find it silly. I mean, these are all grown professional athletes on the verge of the pinnacle of their sport, and they're like dressing up. This is like what we do for the business school World Cup. I just
the Super Bowl shuffle happened, man.
No, that happened. So that was released last week, and then today there's an article in the Telegraph saying that England have had to go out seeking donations to fund the rest of their World Cup expenses. The richest rugby union in the world apparently couldn't figure out how to fund their World Cup expenses.
Authentic samurai armor with Rose brands doesn't come cheap.
I hope Faz gets to keep that suit of armor. I really do, because that was it. That had to be expensive.
Well, anyway, I think we have a chance to make it closer than people expect against England, but I don't think we have a realistic chance of winning.
Yeah, I mean, it's so. Before we get into U.S.
A man can dream, though.
Well, I guess we're sort of talking about U.S. versus England now. So what are you guys thinking? I think we're fit enough to give them a run, and I think we've got I think we've got the defense to do something for a little bit. The question is, because what they didn't do in this game, they weren't really that physical with Tonga. They tried to run their attack and get the ball wide, whereas if they play that, I think we've got the athletes to make tackles and sort of keep it close, but they've got heavy ball runners, and this is where someone like Samu, if he was on this team, would be helpful.
Yeah. I think the USA is a combination of power and speed. So I think it's kind of hard to pick one style of play to play the Eagles. I mean, if you can find that weakness, you can certainly go with it. But I think there's that combination of power and speed that other teams, except for all Blacks, just kind of struggle to bring.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
if you look at the Ireland, I'm remembering the Ireland tests from last year. And I think, what we saw there is, and this is before, I think we had a defense coach, but, what we saw there was a defense that could hold up for a few phases, but Ireland recycled the ball so quickly and their attacks it wasn't anything genius, but it was, not just a forward crash ball. And there's a little thought to it. And after a few phases, we just couldn't get back into our defensive shape quick enough to stop an overload or a line break. So I think that's what we're going to have to see if we want to contain England. Is they're better probably than Ireland in the terms of clever passing, skip finding the right guy, changing directions. I think they're a little better than even Ireland at that. So we're going to have to not only defend those hard runners first phase, but we're going to have to get back up on our feet, get back into shape, over and over again. And I think that's where we maybe will do that for a few minutes, but after the 10th phase, I feel like England's going to find a way to break through.
So this is
I know, but sorry, Aaron, but like I think the big measuring stick against England though is not going to be so much how much are we going to contain them, contain their scoring, but how many points can we ourselves put on the board? Because at the end of the day, points are what win games. In England, yeah, they're a big dog to try to take down. They're a pretty lofty goal, and maybe that's not realistic for this World Cup. But if we can put up at like say 21 points against England in some, in a really, really good showing, that in which we stay in the game for all 80 minutes, well, 21 points against England could easily be 28, 35 points against a team like Tonga. Just like they're just like their game plan. So I think that's the major measuring stick.
So has anyone taken a look at like the statistics engine for the World Cup?
No.
I've got the England versus Tonga one up, and this is the thing that really concerns me. Like, this statistics engine is epic. This is awesome. So if you look at set pieces won, Tonga did kick the touch more. They had they had 15 lineouts. They ended up having more scrums, and the reason obviously why they had more scrums is because England had a bunch of knock-ons. Both teams ended up with 100% scrum success, but Tonga failed to win one of their set pieces. If you look at meters gained, it was not really close. 654 to 199, and the possession was in 60% favored for Tonga in this game, whereas the total territory was 50. So basically 56 to 44% gained there. But the clean breaks is the thing that's pretty intense. And the carries over the gain line. England had 40 carries over the gain line and 16 clean breaks. So we have to tackle. We are going to have to tackle. Like, I cannot say that with Tonga missed 28 tackles. They were only 81%.
That's going to be the thing is, though, tackling is the first thing to be sacrificed when endurance starts to go, when you start to get tired in the match. And that's unfortunately the thing that everybody kind of agrees England is going to beat us on, which is fitness, which is the ability to keep your engine going at 100% through most, if not all, 80 minutes of a match. And again, so our tackling might be good in the first half, but I have some serious doubts about maybe like the final 20 minutes. And I think that's where England could potentially put us away for good.
Yeah, for sure. So moving on, did everyone get a chance to watch Italy versus Namibia?
No. I saw the highlights, but I didn't
saw the highlights. Well, we'll pull up the stats, and this is where I sort of wind Brian Ray up about their idea of targeting, and then Kingsley Jones telling me they're going to target specific games when they haven't been consistent enough to say that we can target games. Whereas what Gary says is, I don't want to target a specific game. I'm going to put the best roster out there I have. And this was the first stretch of games in the Pacific Nations Cup where there wasn't consistent roster selection because they were trying stuff. And guess what? That comes when you're able to do that comes from having added experience over time under a coaching staff to where you can just change a bunch of stuff around and win games. And it wasn't too much when I think about it. It really wasn't that much, but it was enough that was noticeable. But part of that was also because we had injuries, and I'll concede that. You want to rest certain guys and make sure that they're healthy and fit. Mikey Teo was not able to play until after the Pacific Nations Cup was over, but we knew how dynamic of a player he was, so he made it to the team. And he played very well against Canada. Just to look at Namibia versus all the game in the second half, and this is where I think we're going to have a problem throughout this tournament. There aren't many games played in climate-controlled facilities. The Ireland versus Scotland game that was today, in the first half, just like this game, the sun was out and it was dry and it was nice, and then go to halftime, and it's a torrential downpour. It was pretty awful. But for just to look at how this game went, they just sort of overpowered Namibia pretty hardcore. So what you're going to see is Italy had 45 carries over the game line. They passed the ball a lot. At 27 defenders beaten with 22 clean breaks, and they like to offload the ball a lot. They also hit the ruck, and they win that. They were much more disciplined than Namibia was. 5 penalties conceded to 9. They had a line-out steal, and their scrum success was pretty good. When it came to like kicks exited, they had 12. They were pretty close, about 12 to 11 kicks, but sort of similar when it came to meters gained from kicks as well. But defensively, this tells you about how much ball they had and just how much they sort of like kept it and really played hardcore. Like they played some pod rugby in this game because they did not have to tackle Namibia a lot.
I love running the pods, baby.
They only, if you look at this, Italy only had to tackle. They only attempted 105 tackles in this game. They only made 95 tackles. Namibia made 127 and missed 27 tackles.
Well, I mean, when you're on defense most of the game, that's not exactly a surprising statistic.
Yeah.
Is there a possession split percentage with the stats provided?
So the possession split is 57 to 43, and then in total, and then
sounds better than the score indicates.
The last 10 minutes, though, 79% territory in Italy. So that they started pretty well and they finished very well as well. But they didn't
garbage time defense, though, it's the same thing in rugby as it is in football, unfortunately, in many ways.
Yeah, looking at the roster, though, it wasn't necessarily everything that Italy could throw. I'm not necessarily sure, but some guys were rested. So based on that, they're going to be relatively fresh because this wasn't that hard of a game for them. They didn't have to play a lot of defense. They're going to be a very big challenge for Canada. I really
think for Italy. I mean, this is like, almost not to degrade Namibia, but this is like a tune-up for them. So I think rather than be tired or hurt,
Italy ain't no top dog either, though. So call them a tune-up.
Here's the thing: people are like giving Namibia crap as if Canada is any better. Namibia went to South America and kicked the dog crap out of Uruguay, who during the ARC kicked the dog crap out of Canada. So
I think Namibia.
So I mean, I think Namibia versus Canada is going to be a push, but I don't think. To our friends over at La Rouge Rugby, because they gave us a shout out on their podcast last week about who we think who they are going to pick as their tier 2 team that they want to see make a move, and it's I just look at this game as tough for Canada. I want them to be consistent in this World Cup, but I just don't know, man.
Look, if they play the intensity that they played against the U.S. in this September warm-up they had, I think they'll be able to keep it within shooting range. I think it's going to be tough to see them win at the end. But if you're Canada, this has to be your thing. Namibia is an even contest, or maybe you have a slight advantage. So if you're looking to make an upset for your World Cup, Italy is probably the name. I mean, they're not going to beat South Africa or New Zealand. So this is their chance to really have a 30 for 30 moment, in this World Cup. So
I think the other thing to think about is Brian Ray was tweeting comments after a practice from Kingsley Jones. Apparently they had some injuries in camp this week. So don't really know who's going to be on the roster.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be tough. But Italy and Canada will be a good one to watch too, though, because I think I'd love for USA to get some Italy action here in the future. After this World Cup, maybe next year. I think that'd be a good tier 1-y type of name that we could play and potentially beat. So,
yeah, we need to play Italy soon, very soon. But so about to, I guess, wrap this up, guys. Who do you want? What tier 2 team other than the United States do you want to see make some moves in this thing?
Gotta go with the home team, Japan.
Georgia.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with the with Uruguay, dude. Santiago Arada, dude, my boy.
Yeah, Japan, like, although they didn't cover the spread, they are skillful. They're well coached. I think they've got a shot to auto qualify for the next one.
They're definitely going to auto qualify. I think they have a shot to make the quarterfinals. They play Scotland in the last pool play match. Presumably, they're both will have one loss to Ireland at that point. So that'll be for the quarterfinals. I think the home team, Scotland was playing Ireland, granted, not Russia, but they didn't look any great shakes today. So I think Japan has a decent, certainly has a coin flippy type of chance to make the quarterfinals.
Yeah, definitely. I want to see. Problem with Georgia is their form has been kind of awful recently. Like, they did not play well in that series of warmups against Scotland. So it's going to be weird. But what tier 1 team do you think is going to falter?
Looks like South Africa. Honestly, I had the benefit of now seeing the one test there, and they lost to New Zealand. But I thought they were coming in hot, and seeing the match, I felt like they didn't really have this didn't seem to have anything to offer. And they had really good physical intensity and defense in the first 20 minutes, and New Zealand was getting pushed back in their own attack phases. But then, one errant pass from South Africa, New Zealand runs the length of the pitch, and then it was kind of like a dam broke, and New Zealand just took it in from there.
I'm going to say Australia because, in all honesty, Fiji probably should have won that game.
I disagree. Fiji's fitness fell. Fiji's fitness is non-existent after 30 minutes, and even with Yato, like the result was like this gonna be relatively similar, except it would have been a lot closer.
Well, what about the non-red card?
That's Pasela Yato. Like, even with, like, if they had him,
No.
Oh, you mean loot, like,
just
14 man?
Yeah.
At the top, like, you have a TMO and you have ARs to see everything, and they didn't see it. So it's really hard to go, hey, there was a non-call, because all of the systems in place for live matches weren't used. I sort of understood why it wasn't called, and I understand why it was called by the citing official, and he has a hearing today or tomorrow, and it'll get dealt with. But okay, I guess the other topic has been reffing. Do you guys think the reffing has been atrocious, or do you think that after tightening everything up throughout the club seasons and the international seasons that have been upon us the last 2 years, that there's now atrocious reffing? Or do you think that the refs are just facilitating the matches and getting out of the way? Because I don't want to see Nigel Owens or Wayne Barnes or Ben O'Keefe make this about themselves. I want them to enforce the laws. I think another one that came up was someone was trying to say the offside line wasn't enforced with France. Well, and the picture they showed was like a dude 2 meters in front of the ruck. That guy's no longer part of the ruck. It's not the offside line. The offside line is at the ruck. So there's been a lot of selective clipping going on by people with various positions, as it were.
Yeah. I mean, tale as old as time here. Everyone complains about the referees in every venue, in every sport. People hate referees. It's the easiest thing to do. I think the refereeing has been fine. I mean, I think two things. One of the beauties of rugby, in my mind, is the referee that has kind of more discretion than like a baseball umpire per se, who's given a strike zone and it's the clear rules. It's either in or it's out. I feel like in rugby, at least traditionally, the referee has a little more discretion to apply his judgment. Like, okay, yeah, there's an offsides line, but if a guy steps offsides but doesn't impact the play, he's not going to whistle offsides, right? He's like, okay, get on sides, and he may watch the guy next time, but he's able to exercise a little bit of judgment. Now, I think the trend over the last few years, with particularly around head shots and high tackles, has been to err on the side of safety for obvious reasons. They're on the side of safety. So I think what's happened is they've tried to because red cards are so damaging, they've tried to make it very, very prescribed what you do. And for the last few years, referees have been following that prescription, giving letter of the law red cards. Coming to this World Cup, they seem to be not doing that. They seem to be trying to use their judgment even on high shots and red cards, which I get is frustrating and confusing and maybe different than the way they've been reffing, but I think it's better. So let's keep this and let's go back to using some judgment in the other non-World Cup refereeing situations.
I think we also need to consider, too, is that the microscope has never been bigger on referees, especially with all, the avenues of social media, all new different outlets covering rugby. Rugby continues to get bigger every year, especially with a lot more U.S. outlets covering it now. Like Craig said, people are always going to bitch about the ref. It's just a tale as old as time.
I think I talked to a referee who was a female referee, and she was like, I don't think I've liked her as a referee. Like, she's a fine person. But when I watch some of her decisions, I'm maybe it's because of who she's reffing, as in like my team's on the field. I don't know. But we were having a discussion, and she had something important to say. And we sort of had this issue in this season with Derek Summers. And she was like, I had to leave social media because the things that people would say to me or to my parents, because I just made a bad decision in a sport, which is an escape. Like, a sport's an escape, but this is my job. I was basically getting threatened and called disgusting things, so I just quit. And I think that's sort of wrong. Like, the fact that people are lashing out at referees for, perhaps a wrong decision. Like, although I may not have agreed with many of her decisions on the field, I didn't go tweet at her or comment on her Instagram saying she was anything, but that's what she said. Like, this was when I was on my trip to Australia, and because there was a referees forum, which was really cool to hear, like, their inside of the backside of the story from them. Oh, here's a funny one. Not Garce's, who's the French ref? No, Garce's. And he was a ref a top 14 game, and he got stuck in the toilet of a cafe. I think it was in Toulouse or something. so there's there's some cool things like that. You get to hear their stories. Like, referees that, like, I think that all the ones I've met know that they're bound to the game and are servants of the game and do not try to make it about themselves. And I think that they've taken that mantra into this World Cup so far.
So we're gonna make predictions for USA England before we sign off.
Yeah, so we gotta roll out some predictions for these two games. I'll go USA 13, England 40. So 20 minus England minus 27.
I'm going to go England. No, I'm going to say USA 17, England 33. I think USA scores 3 tries, converts 2, misses 1, allows England to run away with it in the second half.
Okay. This is very specific. I'm gonna say okay. I'll do England 29, USA 14. So I'm just gonna say plus 15 for USA.
Okay.
I'll go plus 15 too, but I'll say England 35, USA 20.
Oh. All right. Canada versus Italy. What do you guys got?
I'm gonna say Italy. I'm gonna say Italy 35, Canada 15.
I'm gonna say Canada 12, Italy. I think Canada has a good defensive day. I'm gonna say Italy 20.
I'll say Canada 10, Italy 35. I think Italy will keep their top spot in Pool B.
I think, I kind of like say 40 to 13 is what I'm thinking. I don't really, I think, I don't get the vibe. I've been around.
I'm just laughing at you picked the same score for both games.
Oh, I did? Oh,
yeah.
One opponent is stronger than the other. I have more confidence in the U.S. being being plus 27 than I actually do of Canada being plus 27. I probably should make it like plus 30, but I'm gonna stick with that. We're gonna go with the same score for both games. I think I think that wraps it up. As per usual, Liam, he kind of works for the Free Jacks. Nothing he says on this show is an opinion or a position of the New England Free Jacks. It is a personal opinion. I work for Major League Rugby, and none of my positions are a position or an opinion of my employer. I know that the disclaimer will get inputted later on that is much longer and more legally stratified than the one I just put out, even though I'm the sports law person. But whatever. Thank you for joining the show.
Good night.